I have been at Mountain from 1989 to when I retired in 2009.
I was a slow learner. I was here for 10 years. I graduated in 2001.
I graduated in the 1979-1980 year.
I graduated in 1990.
1983.
1988.
Graduated in 2001.
At Mountain from 1993 to the year 2005.
Graduated in 1980.
I actually was one of the very first teachers to teach at Mountain. When Mountain opened in 1976 in September, I was a social studies phys ed teacher here.
I was one of the founder staff members of this school when it started, actually down back in 1975 in Fort Langley Junior Secondary.
When our school started, we started on shift with Fort Langley Junior Secondary. And we were given the later shift, so that means we started after 12 o'clock and we went through till 5. I didn't mind actually, it was great sleeping in every morning.
Secondary from the time that it opened in I think 75, 76 until I left about 17 years later. And I was the counseling department head when it opened. And we could hardly wait to get out of there and here. So I think that happened in February. So we were excited to get to the new building.
Halloween was always a good time. We always dressed up. And for 2 years running, there was this old hag lady that wandered the halls. And she was really weird looking. People were really nervous about her because she'd just drop into the classes occasionally and never said a word, absolutely covered from head to toe. Took 2 years for people to figure out who she was.
You know, looking back now that I'm a teacher here and I realize how much time has to go into coaching teams, they were there all the time. It was from one sport to the next, from one musical to the next.
The years, and particularly in law, I had students who got a chance to see the Picton case, and I had students who had a chance to see the Clifford Olson case, two very high-profile cases in BC criminal history. But it's kind of cool to think back to the fact that some of my students actually got to see some of that stuff going on.
Taking students on field trips would be the best ones among them. 3 times we went on Mediterranean cruises.
Trips, we went to the Mediterranean cruise, on a Mediterranean cruise one year with Mr. Baker and Mr. Richardson. And those were a great way to get to know students and the teachers. It was really fun.
For me, it has to be the musicals, because when we did start shooting the musicals with Dave Michael and Miss Paul Millette, Mr. Millette, and Glenn White, they were so good. The quality was really, really good. And I did the choreography, and it was so good, and it became a school involvement.
I would say that the fondest memory of that year was participating in the musical that the school produced.
Upwards of 85 students would sign up and take musical theater, and we would put on a musical like Annie Get Your Gun, or How to Succeed in Business, or Bye Bye Birdie, or any of those types of musicals, and we would turn the gymnasium into a theater.
My fondest memory would probably be some of the music department events. I was really active in the music department, so I loved the performances that we did. The end of the year concerts were always a lot of fun, so those would be my fondest memories.
Coaching the volleyball and basketball teams. Other good memories are going with the band to Disneyland and getting a ticket as I was driving the van following the bus. When I was in yearbook with Miss Belton, I remember having to type up all of the grad comments, and they all didn't save. So we ended up having to stay into 10 or 10:30 or maybe even later at school and retype them.
Probably going to the BC High School Championships at the Agrodome with the basketball team.
Some of the sports and things that we held, we had the BC Girls Volleyball Championships here. We had the BC Girls Basketball Championships held in our gym, and these were terrific things for our school to build school spirit and get Mountain known throughout BC as a great school.
Always hard to attract boys to get into the choir. And I'll never forget, there was 4 young guys from the rugby team came up one day and said, "You know, Mr. Michael, it would be great if you could help us learn how to sing. We want to form kind of a small group, and could you help us?" Well, it didn't take long for us to have half of the rugby team singing in the school choir. And it was a great experience, and I guess that really started a wonderful tradition at the school.
I think my fondest memories of Mountain will always be the activities that the teachers participated in that were extracurricular that we did with the students. So obviously top of the list will be the Nutcracker. That was crazy. That we could even do it was amazing.
Performing in the Nutcracker Suite in 1993 when the staff dressed up in costume. The men were dressed up as females, which females were dressed up as men.
It was kind of cool watching the big guys
in tutus,
and the petite ladies behind sort of throwing them up in the air and catching them, so to speak. So that was a lot of fun. And the students really enjoyed it as well.
My favorite memory, visualization, is Mr. Jackson dancing to the Nutcracker Suite with his pink running shoes, substituting for toe shoes, a pink tutu, and a mop on his head.
And I recall that I had huge mammoth memories while doing the dance, and I inadvertently popped one of them. And the students went crazy with the fact that I was missing one breast.
But worse than that, the staff, some of the members of staff, played some local guys basketball in the gym. We were out there urging the staff on. And the guy for whom I bought the present, the pig's feet present, I was rooting for him and saying, "Go, pig's feet, go." And then it was afterwards I realized that's terrible, because the guys they were playing were all RCMP officers, and at that time adolescents were calling the police pigs.
It's always the student that is a sweet, lovable student that does something so what you think is out of character. So no names mentioned, a young lady, beautiful, talented young lady who in her cooking class made a very tasty treat, but instead of putting sugar in it, put cayenne pepper, and then walked around the school to see what teacher she could get to try her tasty treats. Of course, I tried them and loaded with cayenne pepper. So I thought about it, didn't say anything, brought her back, made her eat the rest of the tasty treat herself. I don't think she liked it.
There's probably too many to list, but probably Mr. Jackson doing the air band, where he wore the big top hat on his hat and sang with his belly button. That was quite a memorable event.
Oh boy, that we can tell. I think the teacher story is with Grant and Bruce Jackson. They're always in each other's face, in each other's room, calling each other bald guy. Right?
Yeah, we're twins.
Yeah, you're twins.
Yeah, you know,
yeah.
God, that guy would come in. I just finally get my class settled, you know, and it could be a rather rambunctious class, and we're going to do theory. And nobody likes to do theory. And then Jackson sticks his nose, doesn't knock, just walks in, stands there with his hands in his pocket, and just looks and says, "You going to work my car today?" And the students would say, "Sure, let's go," you know, and I'd lose the class right after that.
I'll never forget being given my first budget. A total of $10,000 is what I was given to provide all the equipment for the music department. I think today you'd be lucky to find a tuba that costs less than $10,000. So
First year teaching, I took my Socials 10 class on a field trip, and we went to North Vancouver to ride the Royal Hudson train, the old steam train, up to Squamish to get on the train. The conductor came out and our class was all waiting to get on, and he came out and said, "Well, I'm sorry, you can't get on until your teacher's here." And I had to tell him that, yeah, I am the teacher. He wouldn't believe that I was the teacher. I actually had to show him some ID to say I was the teacher because he didn't think I was. So that prompted me to, as weak as it was, to grow a mustache that I didn't shave off till last year. So 35 years I had a mustache because I needed to look a little bit older than the students I was teaching.
My favorite teacher, there's always one teacher that impacts your life quite strongly, and I would say Mike Angel, my music teacher, was that person. Not just for the music department, but for just being a mentor and helping me through some difficult times that I had in life, and he was a great teacher. So that's my fondest teacher memory, would be Mike Angel.
Our math teacher, Mr. Whitley, who was a really dynamic, fun fellow. knew math like nobody else, but he was colorblind, so we never knew what he was going to come in. He would come in his bright orange shirt and a purple tie and give us our math lesson. You never knew what he was going to come in or what he was going to do. It was really neat to be in his class.
Mike Baker was the principal when the school opened, and he hired a great staff. It was really cool. Mike was known for being very thoughtful, thinking for a long time in between sentences as he spoke. One day after a really hard, long day, I was gathering up my things to go. And Mr. Baker came into my office and sat down on the settee and started to talk. So I was listening to him, but I was gathering up my things, and he kept talking and was seated. And so then I stood up and started to take my things into my arms, and he remained seated and kept talking. And I walked to the door, and he remained seated and kept talking. Finally, I walked out the door, and it occurred to him that I was leaving. So much and all as I really respected him, I was just so tired. And I think I would have left him there and closed the door, like shut off the light and closed the door.
It feels fabulous. It feels like coming home. There's lots of new faces, but there's lots of old ones too, and I always feel very welcome.
I don't think I ever left. Most of us that have taught at Mountain don't ever really leave it, because the teaching staff at Mountain is like a family.
Oh, it's such a great place. Coming in here today, I seldom come back to Mountain. I've been gone now for 11 years. It's just like deja vu in so many ways. It's a really warm feeling, all the good memories of the students and the parents and the staff. It's a great place.
It's really exciting to come back and see and get a sense of the school spirit that still exists here.
Oh, it's wonderful. I used to stop in from time to time. I only live 10 minutes away.
The only awkward thing about coming back, I suppose, as a staff member, is calling your teachers by their first name.
Having to walk into the staff room as a teacher was definitely the strangest feeling I think I could have felt.
The hardest thing coming back was learning to call my teachers by their first names, and then treat them as colleagues rather than being my teachers anymore.
I enjoy coming back. I love it. It's amazing all the bonds that you have, and I get a lot of hugs too.
It feels great. It brings back lots of old memories, and of course the one thing that struck me as I walked in the doors is the last time I was in a school before I retired. I was an elementary principal, and they're a lot smaller than the kids in the hall here. But the building looks good, and the spirit in the school seems really good.
I will say that it's a lot easier to come back as an adult rather than to be a student. It's nicer.
And some people have said that they see me more now than they did when I was teaching here.